On this month's edition of Outside the Huddle, here comes Draft Day. It's that annual rite of spring when teams get a chance to replenish their rosters. He had one of the most productive careers in Saints history. We'll catch up with former Saints defensive back Sammy Knight in our Where Are They Now segment. And it's the off-season, but some Saints are still making road trips, far away road trips. It's all up next on Outside the Huddle. Hello and welcome to our pre-draft edition of Outside the Huddle. I'm Kim Holden. The time for celebrating the victory in Super Bowl 44 is over. It's back to work now. First stop, the 2010 NFL Collegiate Draft. Who knows how the Saints will fare in this year's draft? Evaluating talent isn't an exact science. In an effort to shine light on some of the possibilities for the Saints in the upcoming draft, let's go to Outside the Huddle's Ro Brown at Saints training camp.
Thanks, Kim. The Saints go into the NFL draft with 6 picks, one in every round except round 5. As the world champs, they'll pick late in every round. But if you believe someone who pays attention to the draft, this may be a good year to bring up the rear. Draft analyst Mike Detillier has been at it for 26 years. He says what sets this year's draft apart from the rest, the top 100 players, the best he's seen.
I've done drafts with better depth across the board, rounds 1 through 7. But that top 100, everybody's going to want extra picks. They're not telling you that, but I'm telling you now, it's really good.
When you win the Super Bowl, you get the last pick in every round, number 32. Obviously, this is new territory for the New Orleans Saints. But if you think picking last because you are the best makes the process more difficult, well, perhaps you're right. But Detillier has another take on it, and it has to do with labor negotiations.
The biggest difference this year is that in years past, and Mickey Loomis has talked about this, that they've tried to address most of their real need areas through free agency and have that wild card at draft time. Now, because of no CBA, you're limited. That changed the draft strategy a lot more than picking 32nd.
Meaning when shopping day arrives in late April, look for the Saints to go heavy defense.
Outside linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle.
With losses on that side of the ball during the offseason, like releasing defensive end Charles Grant and linebacker Scott Fujita taking an offer he couldn't refuse from the Cleveland Browns, the Saints have some holes to fill on defense. And it's just a guess, but who could get the call from the Super Bowl champs when the end of the round comes around?
If Jerry Hughes from TCU is on the board, he'd be hard to pass. There's a guy in a 2-year span has gotten 36 tackles for losses and 26 and a half quarterback sacks when teams double team him every play. That's pretty impressive. He's a hybrid player. He can play defensive end, he can play outside linebacker. He can cause you a lot of problems because of what he can do. A lot of people say, well, he didn't play great competition at TCU. When I look at it, DeMarcus Ware played at Troy. What was the difference between him playing at Troy and what Jerry's done at TCU? 2 other names, Sean Weatherspoon, outside linebacker from Missouri. I think he'll be off the board, but if he would be there, he's intriguing. He's been a starting outside linebacker. He's played the middle. He's great in coverage, tremendous athlete, can do a lot of different things for you on the field. Jared Odrick, big defensive tackle end from Penn State. Kind of a hybrid player. He's 6'5", he's 300. In a 3-man front, he's going to play defensive end. In a 4-man front, he's going to play defensive tackle. A lot of potential as a pass rusher. And again, it's all about pressure.
If Jerry Hughes isn't around, maybe the Saints will look to his TCU teammate, linebacker Darrell Washington.
He's played on the outside, he's played in the middle. He's kind of been a one-year wonder as a starter, but very productive. He's a guy that's made a ton of plays for TCU this year. And what's amazing is that if it's Darryl or Jerry, whoever gets picked in round one, it'll be the first TCU defensive player selected in round one since Bob Lilly.
That was back in 1961. Here's an intriguing player. Louisiana football fans are more than familiar with Mount Cody. Terrence Cody, the All-American defensive lineman from the University of Alabama. He'll be around long enough for the Saints to at least consider him. And that's a lot to consider.
Biggest problem I have with Terrence is he's got a weight problem. Why would you bring somebody have a chronic weight problem to New Orleans to feed him here? He's pushed 370 pounds, in Alabama. You bring him to New Orleans, he's going to be 400 pounds. Give Terrence a lot of credit. Hey, I'm an overweight guy. I know it's difficult to say I'm full. He has lost weight, but I would pass. I'd let somebody else handle what is going to be the problem. He's going to be a fat boy all his life, and he's going to fight it.
And the most talked about player in this draft is a player most agree won't go in the first round. Florida quarterback Tim Tebow. So if you're thinking it's time for the Saints to at least start grooming a quarterback behind Drew Brees, well, Tim Tebow?
I would be surprised if the Saints used a pick on Tim Tebow. Only because that meant you took the ball out of the hands of the best football player on your team in Drew Brees, and arguably one of the top two players in the NFL, and you're going to turn it over to a rookie who's going to run the Wildcat. I think he'll play quarterback at the NFL level, but he is not ready for prime time as an NFL player. I think as a Wildcat quarterback, he'll come in, help a team 5, 6, 7 plays. I think in a couple of years, Tim Tebow will be a new generation version of Roger Staubach.
Now the Saints have picks 32, 64, and 95 in the first 3 rounds, and Detillier says they need to hit on those 3, especially on the defensive side of the ball. When we return on Outside the Huddle, more draft talk with Mike Detillier. We'll talk about recent Saints successes in the draft. But first, here are our Saints notes in the form of the Saints preseason schedule, brought to you by Louisiana Machinery.
Outside the Huddle on CST is brought to you in part by your local Southern Quality Ford dealer, by Calco Travel, affordable luxury unparalleled service, by Eric Hill Nissan in New Orleans East, by From a Tiger, by Louisiana Machinery, service you can count on, and by micrografthairrestoration.com.
Welcome back to Outside the Huddle. There's no question one of the most overlooked aspects of the Saints' rise to world champions has been the work in the front office. You can't win without talent, and there's no denying this organization has found the talent and nurtured its growth. What do players like Robert Meacham, Cedric Ellis, Tracy Porter, and Reggie Bush have in common? They all came to the Saints by way of the draft. During the last 4 collegiate drafts, the Saints selected 15 players who made significant contributions toward winning the Super Bowl. 9 players were full-time starters. Mike Detillier says it's not a case of a team just being plain old lucky.
Everything changed when Sean Payton came in. I think the working relationship between him, Mickey Moomas, the scouting department, that equation changed because we all saw them drafting players that were question mark character-wise, work-wise, talent-wise, and to some extent, injury-wise. You see the character players being brought in, and I'm talking about guys with good character that work hard, understand what they have to do, and they've been able to assimilate them into the system so quickly.
And perhaps that's the difference between the Haslett era and the Payton era. Haslett seemed reluctant to play rookies. Sean Payton finds out if they can play, and he puts them on the field.
When you look at how quickly Jari Evans came in, he was a middle round pick. Bang, right off the bat became a starter. Same thing with Marcus Colston, Tracy Porter, at positions that you might have said, you know what, I don't know about playing that guard cornerback, I don't know about that guard spot. They were able to bring those guys in, and they quickly came in and made an impact. And I think that's the big part of the NFL today. Not only picking good players, but coaching them up and having them ready to play in year 1 or 2.
So the Saints have thrown away the ain'ts tag on the field and in the front office. The run of success in finding talented players through the draft is impressive. Winning the Super Bowl makes you forget about some of the draft day blunders of the past, which leads to the question, who was the best single draft pick in the history of the Saints?
Well, because of where he was picked, I'd have to say Danny Brown was. Because he was a 17th round pick. I mean, you don't have 17 rounds anymore. Danny came in, became an all-pro football player. Best football player, I'd have to break it down 2. Best defensive player I ever saw in this unit was Ricky Jackson. I mean, city champ was the biggest difference maker this football club has ever had. Offensively, and I know it's not the glamour position, it was Willie Roaf. Nobody dominated at that left tackle position for a 10, 11-year span like Willie did. Those were the 2 best football players I ever saw. But value picks in the modern era of football, it would have to be Marcus Colston, because where you got him at, you got him with a 7th round pick, and he's a guy that's basically on the verge of being an all-pro football player.
And the best draft in club history, Detillier says that distinction belongs to the first class selected by Bum Phillips, 1981.
At that time, that was probably Bum's greatest asset as a coach, other than I think he was a great communicator. People underestimated how good of a talent evaluator he was at Houston and those early years, those first couple years in New Orleans. But that 81 group, I don't know how you could get any much better when you're talking about Ricky Jackson, Hobie Brenner, Jim Wilkes, Frank Warren, George Rogers, those first couple years. That was a pretty talented group.
Sean Payton's first draft in 06 could rival Bum's first draft in 1981. The 06 draft gave us Reggie Bush, Roman Harper, Jari Evans, Marcus Colston, and Zach Strief. Now, what about local prospects? We caught up with draft analyst Al Dupuis, who gave us the lowdown on a few. Saron Black was a 4-year starter for the LSU Tigers, and he may be the poster child for coming out of college early. 2 years ago, he was touted as a surefire number 1 pick. 2 years later, many scouts say he could last late into the draft.
The guy's got these really thick legs. He's strong. If he locks onto you, you're not going to get away. But the problem he's going to have is blocking speed rushers on the outside. I don't really, after looking at him, I don't know if he can play left tackle in the NFL. I think he's going to have to move inside to guard. He'll be a good guard. I think then he'll have protection on each side of him.
I can bring, ability, to the table. I'm agile on my feet for a big guy. Play left or right tackle, even inside if they want me to. So, I can adjust to the playbook quickly, man, from the college to the NFL level. So, whatever's asked of me, I'll get it done.
Harry Coleman is another Tiger who is on the draft board, a safety who was moved to linebacker by Les Miles. In the NFL, he should move back to the safety spot.
He's a tweener. He's between a linebacker and a safety. He's kind of small for a linebacker. And he's learning the safety position. So I look for him to make a team also because he's a hustler. He's a good player. He's got some skills.
Tulane's Jeremy Williams was healthy, finally, in 2009. And the result was over 1,100 yards in receptions and 7 touchdowns. He was selected the most outstanding player at the Senior Bowl. He's attractive to pro scouts because he's also a return specialist.
I did that in high school. When I got to Tulane a little bit, they didn't let me do it my freshman year. But as I got through the grades and everything, I ended up doing a little kick return too. So it's definitely my forte.
he just gets open and makes plays. And that's another guy that had a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to go somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round from Tulane, and I think he's going to make a team. I like him a lot. I think he's a good receiver with good hands. Made a lot of plays for Tulane on a team that wasn't really that good.
Another player along the lines of Williams is Dexter McCluster of Ole Miss, an explosive player whose days as a running back could be over due to his slight 165-pound frame.
I don't think it's over. I think it might be a little more limited, but it's not over.
He's going to be a spot player, going to be an exciting player, and he's going to make a lot of plays in the National Football League, like a smaller Reggie Bush, but this guy's explosive, man. I mean, he's going to be exciting to watch.
The last significant local prospect drafted by the Saints, Devery Henderson out of LSU. The 50th pick overall, he went in the 2nd round in 2004. So it's the NFL Draft, a 3-day primetime affair this year, April 22nd to 24th. Kim, back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Ro. The draft is all about bringing new players into the fold, but part of the efforts to repeat as champions will center around keeping the players you already have. Defensive lineman Anthony Hargrove received interest from the Detroit Lions. However, he has decided to remain a Saint and signed a 1-year tender with the club worth $1.2 million. His comeback story after substance abuse problems made him a fan favorite in New Orleans. He was voted by his teammates as the club's winner of the Ed Block Courage Award. And changes are in store for overtime in the NFL. League owners voted to change the way things are done in the postseason. If the team that wins the coin toss scores a field goal on the first possession, the loser of the toss will now get at least one possession. In May, the owners will discuss using the new overtime format during the regular season. Up next on Outside the Huddle, he came from nowhere to the Pro Bowl. And here are our NFL notes brought to you by Calco Travel. You're watching Outside the Huddle on CST. Although we've talked a great deal about the collegiate draft, our Where Are They Now feature highlights someone who did not hear his name called on draft day. But that didn't stop Sammy Knight from playing at the highest level. Sammy Knight is the subject of our Where Are They Now segment.
Saint safety Darren Sharper did this 3 times last season. Intercept a pass and return it for a touchdown. A Saints single-season record, but he is not the all-time Saints record holder. That distinction goes to a man who spent 6 seasons wearing black and gold. Sammy Knight came up with 4 pick sixes in his career. Where is Sammy Knight now?
I'm in Houston, Texas right now, doing a little broadcasting, but I'm out here trying to pursue coaching right now also.
He intercepted 28 passes during his time with the Saints and made the Pro Bowl after the 2001 season. Not bad for a player who was an undrafted free agent out of Southern California. Now retired at age 35, he looks back and thinks about a bright-eyed rookie back in 1997 with lasting memories of that rookie season.
I remember the fans the most. You know, that's the thing I remember most about New Orleans, the fans and the pride that they had in the Saints, win, lose, or draw. I remember the crawfish boils. You know, I remember everything. I remember the quarter. So, you know, I love New Orleans. It's still my wife's favorite city, our favorite city. You know, the people there are some of the best people in the world, give you the shirt off their back, and we still have a lot of good friends out there.
Sammy owes his professional career in large part to Mike Ditka. He was one of the few quality discoveries during the Ditka era.
He did a great job of instilling a sense of confidence in us, you know, as a team. We didn't get it done when he was there, but he did a great job of getting the organization headed in the right direction. And then Jim Haslett took it to the next level.
During his time with the Saints, the club's record was 41-55. However, he has fond on-field memories not always football related.
is the black and gold, my favorite color. You know, the jerseys. I love being out there, and I love being in the dome. I remember having the whistle man. You know what I mean? Just little things that, you know, a lot of people wouldn't think you remember, but I remember that Tom Benson dancing with the umbrella, you know, and second lining after the game. You know, those are some of the fondest memories I have. And you know, the first playoff win, you know, that was a big moment for us. And you know, it was a great feeling to experience that with the fans.
Sammy Knight went on to play for the Dolphins, Chiefs, Jaguars, and Giants. But as he ventures into a life off the field, there's no question, he'll always be a New Orleans Saint.
The majority of my career was in New Orleans. You know, that's where I started. That's where I started my career, and that's where, you know, I married my wife. And so, you know, we have very fond memories of New Orleans, and we love that city.
Knight finished his NFL career with 42 career interceptions. When we come back, we've got some globe-trotting Saints. But first, here's our question for the month, courtesy of Eric Hill Nissan. Outside the Huddle on CST is brought to you in part by your local Southern Quality Ford dealer, by Calco Travel, affordable luxury unparalleled service, by Eric Hill Nissan in New Orleans East, buy from a Tiger, by Louisiana Machinery, service you can count on, and by micrografthairrestoration.com. Welcome back. Before we go, some Saints players took special off-season road trips recently. Quarterback Drew Brees and tight end Billy Miller visited American troops stationed overseas. The players dropped in on soldiers stationed in Turkey, Dubai, and the small African nation of Djibouti. They also visited troops aboard the USS Nassau. Brees and Miller were not the only Saints abroad. Pro Bowl offensive tackle John Stinchcomb took a USO tour, which included a stop in Afghanistan. That's our show for this month. We'll be back in May. For all of us here at Outside the Huddle, thanks for watching. I'm Kim Holden.